Okay. Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Thursday, January 20th meeting of the City of Palo Alto's Public Art Commission. I'm excited that we're all here and good to see everyone. We're going to start off with roll call. Commissioner Miyagi.
Here.
Commissioner Walczak.
Here.
Vice Chair Gordon.
Present.
And Chair Taylor present. Thank you. Okay, next we have any agenda changes, requests, or deletions?
There are none.
Okay. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the public? No.
Currently no attendees.
Okay. Next, we'll approve the minutes of the Art Commission's meeting on November 4th, 2021. Can I get a motion?
So
Or
moved.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Great. And we'll need to a roll call. Okay. So Chair Walczak,
Yes.
Chair Miyagi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gordon, and Chair Taylor, yes. And I think Vice Chair Gordon, you'll need to say your name or say yes.
Yes, Lauren Gordon, yes.
Thank you. Okay, great. And now we're on to staff comments.
So happy New Year, everyone. We're really excited to see everyone again. Welcome to 2022. Let's see what that has in store for us. We're looking forward to lots of great new public art projects and engagement with the community this year. On that note, I just have one staff comment just to let you know that the contract with our first artist resident with Rios Magos is with purchasing. So we expect that that will be circulated soon and we can get Rios started. So we've had a number of pre-meetings with him, but we can't officially start until we have a signed contract. So stay tuned for details. We're already putting together lots of community events and we'll notify the commission as soon as we can move forward with those. So that's it for tonight.
Thank you, Elise. Okay, next we're on to our action items. We have a lot to cover and go through, but it should be exciting to discuss. First, we'll start with our adoption of resolution.
So as a quick reminder, this is a housekeeping item that the commission must approve in order to hold this meeting virtually. So the council has indicated that all boards and commissions will be meeting virtually at least through the end of February. Knowing what we know about COVID and how fluid things are and how flexible we've had to be, it may extend further than that. But this is essentially the resolution that will allow us to carry out a meeting and take action this evening.
Thank you. Can I get an approval to adopt the resolution authorizing use of teleconferencing for the Public Art Commission during COVID?
I move that we adopt this resolution, allowing us to use online for our meetings, especially this meeting, January 20th.
I heartily second that motion.
Okay, we have to do our formal roll call. Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes, I agree.
Chair Miyagi,
Yes.
Chair Walczak,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. I said Chair Walczak. Wow, I was ahead of myself. Commissioner Walczak. Okay, thank you, everyone. Next, we are going to discuss our public art micro grants.
Wonderful. So as many of you remember, we did a series of micro grants last year that were very popular. We funded 40 micro grants for $1,000 each. The intent of that was to maximize the number of artists and a wide array of expressions with a focus on connection, emotional and economic recovery. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, both from the public and from the artists themselves. There were a few challenges. with having that many $1,000 grants is, for many of the artists, they were able to carry these out, but quite a few of them, in order to execute the vision they really had, they dipped into their own pockets to really carry out the artwork, which was not the intent of the project. It was also very staff intensive. So you can imagine there are 40 different, each project requires contract, series of payments, the logistics, working with each artist, making sure permissions were cleared with the site and any stakeholders there. Was a lot of work for projects that were somewhat ephemeral because of not only the funding, but also especially the early ones that went the COVID limitation. So we weren't able to promote some of the performance-based projects in a way that we normally would because we needed to avoid having crowds amass. That changed somewhat as the months went on. But based on that feedback and the Commission's previous discussions about having another round of microgrants, staff is returning with a recommendation that the Commission approve another $40,000 for 10 $4,000 projects that will focus on community connection, play, and healing while raising the level of impact. So I say that, I mean like the number of participants in each project or artwork in this round. So with that, I turn it over to the Commission for discussion and questions.
Thank you, Elise. Any questions, thoughts, comments? First of all, I just want to say, Elise and Nadia, thank you for all your hard work on these grants. So they turned out wonderfully. Lisa.
I think it's an outstanding idea because I actually proposed one myself before I was on the commission, and it was difficult to try and get the vision into $1,000. So I think fewer and less taxing on the staff and fewer bigger or more thoughtful or more detailed projects would impact the community well. And I think it would be easier for I think all around for the artists, the staff, and the community, it would be a benefit. So I think that's a great idea.
Ben.
Yeah, I have a comment. I think the original project was really, really good. It was so good for the community and the involvement of everybody. I think this is a natural next step to bring it to a larger scale of 10K a piece. And will they stay up longer than a couple of days or a weekend? Will they be a month in duration or 6 months or whatever time frame there is in that? I think the materials would be more durable that you could use with this increase in funds. So I think with this, you'd want it to stay up a little longer than a weekend.
Absolutely.
Can I ask, are you considering 4 at 10K each, or have we yet to discuss what the allocation of funds will be and how many projects?
So right now, what our recommendation is 10 projects at $4,000 a piece. So it would be enough funding to have something that would last longer, or if it's more performance-based, that there would be more performances or events so that more of the community would have a chance to participate or experience it.
But to Ben's point about the 10K each, is there any flexibility? Could an artist say, I'd like to apply for 2 grants for 1 project? Or are we really trying to formalize it like we did last time and say, here are your terms, right? So I'm just wondering about that.
Yeah, I think just from a staff standpoint, it's much cleaner, and especially with a call to say, here's the set budget for each project. So each project is $4,000. 10 will be selected by the selection panel. It's much cleaner than trying to have this sliding scale. What are the metrics? Are we going to give this group 2,000 or 4,000? It gets messy.
And it takes more staff time, it sounds like, as well.
Staff time, and also it's more on the panelists and a lot of questions back and forth. Well, what does this really cost and what is this worth? So it's much cleaner to just say, this is the budget. And that's traditionally how we do all of our artist calls. And then have the proposals come in with that budget in mind.
Great. Well, it just sounds like a wonderful idea. And I used to go on hunts trying to find these micro grant projects. So I look forward to seeking out 10 of them. What's the time frame? Is it over the year? Is it a 12-month project?
That's a great question. I always feel like when you have multiple small projects, it's more impactful to have them happen sort of at the same time. So if we were going to have one selection panel, we would want to have this open a little bit longer so that artists or teams have a chance to be really thoughtful in their proposal and to put something together. It'll take us a little time to get the call out. We'll probably want the call out for about 6 weeks. And then it'll take some time to get agreements together and some back and forth on logistics. So, you know, for instance, we have a lot of artists who made proposals for a specific space that wasn't feasible for one reason or another. So hunting for a new space that we could agree upon and then tying off, say, with Parks and Rec or whoever else has a stake in that space takes some time. So what we're anticipating is that this would take place over the spring, potentially early summer, so that people could really take a tour and go find all of these projects.
And so when would you want to get the call out, and how do you define the panel that evaluates the proposals?
That's a great question. We put together a different panel for each project. So generally one commissioner, and since you're one of our newest commissioners, you would probably be approached to serve on said panel since you haven't had a chance to do it before. And with the smaller temporary projects, generally then it's a smaller panel of staff. With more permanent projects, we tend to have a panel of 7.
And just my first question was, when would you hope to have that call out?
It would probably, we could have it out within the next month.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, serving on the panel was really a lot of fun to see all the different projects come through and all the different ideas. It was just, and the community involvement. Now, is this going to be a wider scope of an artist call, since there's an increase in the money and the scope, I guess, of the project? Would this go to a wider call, more community and artists, or how would that work?
You know, that is a really great question. Both the submissions for code art for the smaller artist interventions and for the micro grants were just open. So we didn't require an artist resume or something to that effect, but just some sort of statement and support materials that they have the ability to carry this off. So I'm more inclined, based on our experience with the micro grants, that we might want to leave it open and then see how the panel decides to take that. One of the wonderful things about the micro grants was getting the opportunity to meet so many new artists who may have jobs outside of the city and hadn't previously engaged with the public art program. And so now we have all this, this creative talent within the Palo Alto community that is in our radar. That being said, I don't know that we want to limit it just to the Palo Alto community, but make it a little more regional.
Super exciting. Well, I move that we do a call for 10 micro grants of $4K each.
I'm going to second that, Lauren.
Okay.
As well. Okay, so we need our lovely roll call. Commissioner Waltuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Yay. Okay. Next, we have collection care.
So we have a number of items coming up that have to do with the care and keeping of our collection, which is Nadia's purview. So I'm going to turn things over to her. As you all know, and is going to come up a little bit tonight, anything with plumbing, moving parts, or electronics requires a little more intensive, regular maintenance and repairs. And so the next item we're going to talk about is the California Avenue Fountain by Mike Sabo, called Confluence. And with that, I turn it over to Nadia.
Thank you, Elise, for this introduction. Yes, it's absolutely right. As you may recall, this is a returning item to the Public Art Commission. And in particular with this piece, anything that involves water or new media usually requires a little more intensive maintenance and the upkeep than say like more static, freestanding metal sculptures. So with Confluence by Palo Alto native Michael Sabo, we usually in close touch with the artist. He keeps an eye on the piece every time he comes to Palo Alto just to check on, all the just water flow and just how patina is doing. We're in touch with parks just to check in on how mechanics works. So this is almost the time for our annual preventative treatment procedure. So the artist was on site earlier, just before we all broke for for Christmas and New Year's holidays. So he assessed the current condition of the sculpture and got back to us with the following treatment proposals. So he will treat the sculpture to remove any stains and oxidation, brighten and touch up the patina. Again, we'll coat and coat the surface with the UV wax, do some flow adjustment and tuning. So he would we tentatively have some date for the artist and his crew to be on site for the treatment. We're looking at sometime actually the last week of January, should the funding be approved today. Yeah, so let me know please if you have any questions about this treatment and anything about the fountain.
Thanks,
When
Nadia.
was
I
the
haven't-
last, I'm sorry. When was the last time this
Confluence.
care or the routine cleaning was done?
Yes,
I see.
absolutely. So the last time the artist was on site to treat the sculpture was a bit over a year ago. I want to say about 14 to 15 months ago.
Okay, and when was it? Was it rededicated? I remember there was some sort of a ceremony there. It was what, 2 or 3 years ago?
That's right. So as I recall, in May 2015, we had a dedication ceremony on the plaza right after the entire Plazascape was complete and reopened to the public.
Okay, and this is kind of a, I don't know, question, but does the amount of rain that we get affect the cleaning and the rust and all that on the piece?
Yeah, good question. We've learned a lot throughout the past few years how to care for water sculptures. So in terms of the rain affecting, aging, not so much. However, as you may know, one of the factors playing in. So the fountain is using upcycled water. It essentially just, it's this like continuous sort of, pool of water that keeps rotating through the sculpture. So there are chemicals added to treat the water so it's safe for the public. There's some amount of chlorine that has been added to the fountain. So that in part impacts, aging of patina. However, we cannot use untreatable water. So we have to, kind of like find this golden sort of silver lining between, preserving the fountain and making sure it's well cared for, and also making sure it's a sculpture that is safe for the public.
Nadia, I know that it is, you just answered one of my questions about being upcycled water. Do you know how much water though it does use every month or year?
I cannot say name that number off the top of my head. It's probably something that I can inquire with the parks, but there's a tank in that plaza underneath, right? The plaza with the pumps. So it's not that big actually, but I'm not sure about the exact amount. I can look it up. It's a good question.
It's okay. I know that was kind of off the record. Okay, great.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why the sculpture has to be tuned, frequently, because if, there's any organic growth, say on top of the, sort of the undulations here, the sculpture might start losing water due to splash. And so again, that's another reason to perform this annual maintenance.
I must say I'm glad you were talking about the upcycle water, because I've been thinking a lot about water usage, and I was saying, well, maybe it's time that we shut the water off, but I'm a little now okay with keeping the water on if it's just reusing water.
Yes.
So, I mean, it is maintenance, but I think that's what we get behind the sculpture in our collection. And I think as long as I think people like it. I don't think we've heard a lot of complaints, which is good. And I think it's unique. It's different. So I kind of like the texture and the coloring sometimes, even with the nice wear. I'll use the word wear and tear, but I know it's nice to also clean it up. So anybody else have any thoughts?
It's nice to have that fountain actually running, and when you're there and there's not train noise going by, it is quite lovely to have that sound. When I first met Ben Miyagi, that's where we met.
Yes.
You remember that? So it has sentimental feelings for me.
It is just a quick reminder, a little history on the project. There used to be a bird bath style fountain that was located a little further out, closer to the tip of that plaza. And at some point, a delivery truck backed into it. So it was supported with these rods. And so when the avenue was being redone and the Public Art Commission came forward, there was a lot of back and forth about the community really insisting that there be a fountain there. And quite a few of them really liked the bird bath fountain design. And council did weigh in and say, actually, it should be a custom, artist design, and we'll support that. And so it was great that it was a Palo Alto native who won the commission. And then the whole plaza got redesigned. So we were able to work with that whole design to have a new pool poured for it and everything. But the idea of having a fountain there and having that splashing sound was a major takeaway from the CalAV community. So that's when it was actually commissioned and designed with that in mind.
Great.
Okay, then I make a motion that we allocate up to $4,000 for the routine cleaning and preventative maintenance of Confluence.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. And a roll call. Well, I like to say roll call, but I guess I'll call it a roll call again. Motion roll call, approval roll call. Okay, Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Walczak,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor. Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to another collection care item. Actually, we have two more after, or one more after this.
Mhm.
And this one
Wonderful.
encompasses two projects that are neither kinetic nor plumbed, but they also require a little maintenance and support occasionally as well.
So let me
So, Nadia,
share,
you're up.
reshare my screen once again to show you some visuals. So the pieces we are discussing today, these are some of the oldest outdoor sculptures in our collection. On your left, you see Stephen J. Rand's movement for the sculpture that has been in our collection since 1977. So this artwork can be found in the lawn area along Middlefield Road, adjacent to Lucy Stern Community Center and Children's Theater. Throughout this winter, the past couple of months, we did condition assessment of our outdoor collection. And one of the things that came to our attention, we noticed that the back of the concrete base of Movement 4 has sustained some damage. We don't know for sure when and how it happened. Based on the damage, we suspect it was probably a maintenance vehicle that backed into the sculpture. Fortunately for us, the damage is actually just on the surface. You can see that the outlining of the skirt has this crack. So we were in touch with the fabricator who actually put this base in place in the first place, I believe in 2014, and the contractor is available to make this repair. As well, let me just proceed to the next slide.
And I think it's important to note that the damage here is not structural, that it's just the skim coat. It's more of a cosmetic fix, that if those pieces were to fall away, it just would not look very good. So that one's a quick and easy fix. The next project Nadia is going to show you is a little more substantial in scope.
Yes, thank you, Liz, for this important clarification. The next concrete pad related maintenance project that we're bringing forward today has to do with Albuquerque. So it's another sculpture at Rinconada, sort of like cultural neighborhood in Palo Alto. So just outside of Palo Alto Public Arts Center along Embarcadero Road. So this is also one of the oldest pieces in our collection by an Oakland-based artist, Gail Wagner. So this piece has been in our collection since 1982. As you can see, it extends, part of the sculpture extends sort of over the lawn, and not protected by the base. Well, what happens sometimes is, it has a couple of, scratches in the surface, probably done by, maintenance vehicles, we're not sure. So we've been thinking about, addressing this issue, but in a way that we can prevent, similar damages in the future. So what we would like to propose is actually extend the existing base. So, no lawn mowers or any other maintenance vehicles in the future are unable to, drive really underneath the sculpture. So we had a meeting with the contractor on site who provided an estimate in conjunction with the repair of the base for figure 4, movement 4. So, this project would expand the existing concrete pad by about 80, I think, cubic inches. Not inches, but feet, sorry. So, and it will sort of continue this angulated oval shape of the base. So, you know, not to interfere, sort of like impact the look of the and experience of the sculpture. So we are requesting that Commission approves the funding for these maintenance projects in the amount of $3,300. We would proceed with the maintenance repairs of both pads sometime in February. Let me know if you have any additional questions.
Question. Have you talked to the artist about the extension for Albuquerque? Just because I'm just wondering if it changes her vision of what that kind of cantilevered quality of the sculpture.
Right, that's an excellent question. We will reach out to Gail. You know, he is in his really advanced age at this point. You know, when it's an interesting historic fact about the sculpture. So how the city acquired it was first on loan, along with a number of other sculptures that can be found, you know, across Palo Alto now in their city collection in 1982, I believe, for a year, and then it was purchased by the city. So at first, the sculpture was just positioned on the ground, and over some period of time, it actually started sinking into the ground. Right? It's a pretty heavy, significant metal sculpture. So in the early 90s, when you know, the city decided to put the base, you know, place the concrete pad and place the sculpture on that base. So Gail actually was, you know, part of this decision-making process. So that, you know, concrete pad, that oval concrete pad that you can see was, I believe, designed in, you know, collaboration with the artist. So we will definitely reach out to him and just let him know that, you know, we would like to expand the sculptures, the base, to protect the sculpture.
Great question, Lisa.
Pardon?
Oh, I said that was a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it will really significantly change it, because part of the beauty of it is it almost seems like it's defying gravity, and to extend the base, I think will change that a bit, not completely. So, but it is interesting, very interesting, Nadia, that that wasn't there originally. So it's already been modified, I guess. And I understand the reasons clearly.
And this is a really good point. You know, often we always need to kind of like weigh in, you know, pros and cons, and, you know, it's, you know, our goal is to preserve and protect the artwork, you know, prevent any possible damage in the future. So when we, you know, repainted the sculpture in 2017, you know, so that project, you know, priming, recoding the sculpture was just a bit over $10,000, right? So in a way, expanding that base will allow us to, you know, prevent any future damage, and, you know, make it, you know, just do it economically as well, you know, just so we can also like allow funding for the rest of the growing collection in the city, right? It's only, since it's only $30,000 per year. So kind of have to be judicial here.
Do you, is it clear that it is the lawnmowers? I guess I'm just wondering if extending the concrete base is going to prevent anything else from scratching it or doing harm to the,
right,
to the sculpture itself.
So again, we were not there when the damage took place, but we were in conversation with our parks colleagues, and so those scratches are kind of like in line. That's a plausible theory. We don't know of any other commercial vehicles, for example, ever being on the loan, but it's maintenance crews are there, and the vehicles are quite large and bulky, so I can totally see it happening. Just an awkward turn may cause another scratch, and if it's a deep gouge into the skin of this steel piece, here we're looking at some really significant repair measures and funding needs for that.
So
And
not a person couldn't have done it, right? Like nobody could have exerted that much force to make a dent or a scratch like that. Is that correct?
I don't think a human would be able to exert that much force. Yes.
Yeah.
It really looks like metal on metal.
Mhm.
And when we asked our parks colleagues about it, they said, yeah, it looks like it was probably a maintenance vehicle, especially since they don't do hand mowing anymore near things. They really drive those things as close as they can. And if they drive pretty fast, they're in a hurry. So so their first indication was, yes, it's probably, unfortunately, one of the maintenance crew. And so our best advice would be find some way to eliminate the grass that's near the sculpture, so that equipment doesn't have to get there.
So how many
Yeah,
feet
'cause-
away from the sculpture will the concrete be, do you think, or the additional concrete?
Yeah. So
So like, well, I'm just, by the image, it's hard to tell that it's gonna really protect the
I know
sculpture
it's-
enough.
not a great
Right.
stature, but essentially, the base would extend about, I think, 80 inches. Essentially, it would extend to the length of the sort of like the wing of the sculpture. So we don't want the base to extend too far, so we preserve that feel of sort of lightness and sort of weightless sort of feel of the sculpture. However, it will extend to the point that it would prevent a vehicle, say, going underneath the protruding part of the sculpture. And if it's any comfort as well, the concrete contractor that we reached out to, he's done some work for us in the past. It was the same concrete contractor who created the pad for Universal Woman. So we really trust the quality of the work. I think they'll do a really good job just to make sure it looks cohesive and in line with the existing pad.
So these pieces are in places where there would be no private vehicles
No.
that could get to them. So, and the movement 4 piece,
Mhm.
crack, you said that it looked like a vehicle maybe had backed into that piece. Because a lawnmower, I'd have to hit it pretty hard, I think, to do that type of damage. Would it be feasible with this piece as well to extend that concrete pad out? To do that, to keep that as safe as well, or even put up a little fence around it or something to keep the machinery from around it?
Yeah, Ben, I appreciate that question. Actually, what we talked about with our colleagues in Parks and Open Spaces, we were actually asking them to reintroduce some friendly landscaping around the band. I mean, if you can see on the left, we used to have a ring of lavender around the sculpture. Unfortunately, during the excessive drought, I think over the course of 2 past years, it slowly died. But the plan that we have with our parks colleagues is that once the pad is the skirt scheme the skim and skirt of the pad is repaired, they will replant some grasses that will, sort of like prevent the vehicles from just approaching too closely. And I think this would be sort of a more, friendly experience as opposed to just like putting a little, gate around it.
Nadia, can I
Okay,
assume that the picture?
Excuse me?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ben. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I just think that to prevent either piece from being marred in the future is, I like the extension of the concrete pad, or maybe put a ring of gravel or something around the movement for something like you were saying,
Yeah.
to keep the machinery away from it.
Yeah, we can definitely explore these options, some amount of mulch around the bend, would also signal, maintenance workers that they don't need to approach too closely. Also, as a courtesy, we reached out to other, teams that service parks around Palo Alto, just to remind them to be mindful of public art in green and open spaces across the city.
So in movement 4, is that the only damage is to the base? There's nothing to the actual column itself?
Yes,
Could
absolutely.
you tell it was hit by
Absolutely.
something?
And I don't have another picture to show you, but essentially, you can see there's a chip here, like Elise said, there's no structural damage to the base.
Okay, but what about to the column itself?
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's like maybe something drove over that
Yeah.
It looks like it. Yes.
that part there. Okay, it wasn't hit, but something
Yes,
drove over
we were on
that edge.
site a couple of times with the contractor and also parks staff, just to really take a close look and evaluate the condition of the base, the column, and both times we determined that there is no structural damage to the base. So it's just really just that cosmetic layer that needs to be addressed, so nobody trips on it. It looks fine. There's no water that traps underneath, and it's just aesthetically it looks pleasing.
Yeah.
Nadia, can I assume that the pictures you've taken are recent?
Yes, they're very recent.
Okay. So, because with Albuquerque, can you turn to the? There's a picture. I think there was another picture. Yeah. So I'm looking at the base, and it looks like, I can't tell if that's just a shadow or is it, I'm blanking on what you call it, where it might need to be power washed. I don't know, but I'm wondering, does the base,
Yeah.
the whole base need to be replaced in general? Or is
No,
it okay? Just
the base is structurally sound. What you're looking at is some pooling of water, because every morning the sprinklers go on and water that lawn. So the picture was taken probably in some early morning hours, right after the lawn was watered, and it just didn't get a chance to dry yet.
fair. And then one other question, if you can go back one slide. So with some of the scratches, are those going to be covered and fixed with our regular maintenance budget? Is that how, or does that need to be
So
configured as well?
Yeah, we can come back to this conversation another time. So the piece is 5 years in after it's been recoded in 2017. So there's no damage to steel underneath. So we're keeping a close eye on the condition of the piece. Like I said, we just held, we did a number of condition reports on pieces around the city. So it's stable so far. So we're just gonna keep monitoring the scratches and just for any water damage and so on. But
at some point we will have to return to the commission for a repaint.
yes,
These projects do need repainting periodically, and we want to make sure that before we do that, we have the extended pad in place, so we are in a position where we repaint it and it immediately gets damaged.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, anybody else have any other last minute comments, questions, thoughts? Is there a motion? Well, then I'll motion to approve funds in the amount of $3,300 for the repair and expansion of concrete pads for Albuquerque and Movement 6. And can I get a second?
I second.
Great, thank you. And roll call, Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes, I approve.
Commissioner Waltuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Viadi,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Thank you, everybody. Next, we have another collection care item. Susan Arduley.
This is always a good time for us to go through a lot of collection care because we're halfway through our fiscal year. As you all may recall, the funds for collection maintenance do not roll over year to year. So we want to make sure that we do address these projects in a timely fashion so we don't wait too long and have to turn back funding. And then the next year we're short on projects that we need to work on. So the next project, and I think Nadia's got some slides for you, is for a conversation by Susan Narduli in the lobby of City Hall, a new media piece, which is also recognized by Americans for the Arts as one of the best public art projects of that year. And I'll turn it over to Nadia to give you the report.
Thank you, Elise. Yes, absolutely. So as the City Hall building opened back to the public earlier this year, we wanted to make sure that we address also this new media piece. So as you recall, this new media artwork was commissioned for the newly renovated lobby area of City Hall. So the commission was, this project was installed in early 2015. We had an unveiling ceremony, opening night in the lobby with Susan Narduli addressing the public that evening. Yes, so like Elise mentioned, that this piece was recognized by the Americans for the Arts in 2017. It also received a Coda Merit Award a year early in 2016. So we're really proud to have this flagship, new media installation by a female artist in our city collection. So just to walk you through sort of what the piece is, looks like. Let me just do this. Next slide. So the conversation by Susan Narduli is a site-specific interactive new media artwork in City Hall lobby that invites the public into the civic space and engages them in a meaningful way that reflects the open, transparent government that we strive to be. So while offering a unique artistic experience, conversation celebrates freedom of speech and expression and also invites visitor interaction. The custom interface scans Twitter and posts global, national, and Palo Alto local news feeds. And it also allows users to respond with comments and photos through the internet or on an on-site touchscreen display. So this content is mapped to complex behavior, creating continuously evolving artwork. So the image you're looking at right now is that interactive kiosk, which is located in the lobby adjacent to the piece. So I think this image really kind of shows the position of the kiosk in relation to the piece. So the piece was created in 2014. It's significant amount of time for new media piece. Technology continuously evolves. We've been actually doing a lot of service just work and kind of like maintenance in the back end of the piece along with the artist and her developers. During in the midst of the pandemic, when City Hall shut its doors to the public, unfortunately, what we did to preserve the monitors went on and actually turn off the monitors for the piece. However, we kept the piece running in the back. So like I said before, in-person and sort of remote interaction with the public is really essential to the, to this artwork. Right now on this picture, you can see that the kiosk is dark, right? It's actually shut down. So the interactive interface for the kiosk is based on Adobe Flash. In the midst of the pandemic, what happened is Adobe actually discontinued Flash, and we lost ability to use the on-site kiosk to interact with the piece, and so the public essentially couldn't submit their comments, like you can see on this photo, on this picture, or take selfies and send it to the piece. The piece is still interactive in the way that anybody on their phone or online can submit a comment that will pop up on the wall, but it doesn't have this immediate sort of interactive effect as if when you would work, communicate with the piece through the kiosk. We've been in touch with Susan Narduli and her team, trying to identify a solution going forward to resume the artwork's like interactive nature to its full extent, but also technology changes fast. It's also important to the artist and to us that the experience with the kiosk is relevant to a current user experience. The piece is robust, it's fast, design is not it doesn't feel antique, and sort of aged. So we received a proposal from the artist that would provide include this concept development and design development of the kiosk, its interactive interface, and also support quick and robust communication of this, between the kiosk and submitted content and the wall. So we got a proposal for the amount of $7,800. So the artist and her design and development team would work on the the new code, program development. Also, this price includes hardware and software. The kiosk would require a newer, faster and more robust little mini computer. Yeah, and just the visual design development concept of the interface as well. Let me know if you have any questions.
So Nadia, for the things that are going to be revamped are the software, the interface, and just the computer that runs it. The monitors that are there are all fine and able to handle the load of the new software.
Right. So we're not considering replacing the monitors for the media wall, right? We're talking about replacing the computer that would, run the kiosk monitor, its software license, and also just development of the new code that would, just create this experience.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And
The
Lisa, just so
unfortunate
you
thing
know,
about- I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just gonna remind Lisa, I don't know if she knows this, but that I think it was a 10-year lifespan. Lisa, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But there is a lifespan because it's a tech piece. So just FYI.
Yeah, thank you.
We do that
Got
with most of our artworks, especially anything that might be vulnerable is put in the contract and expected lifespan. So we had put 10 years. So if after the 10-year period, it makes more sense to de-accession this, the artist is well aware of that.
Okay. Yeah, the unfortunate thing about hardware and software, the next day after you buy it, it's obsolete. And which we found here, especially with that, the kiosk and the interface there. So I'm glad that there's new hardware coming in and new software to do that as well. But as a lease and that 10-year lifespan now, if we install this new hardware and software, does that extend that 10-year? Is it 10 years from that installation, or is it 10 years from the beginning of the project?
That's a great question. It doesn't mean that we have to get rid of it after 10 years. It just sets expectations with the artist that we may want to consider de-accessioning this project after 10 years. So when we reach that point, it was installed in 2015. If we at 2025 feel like, okay, we put this money into it, it's looking great, we're under no obligation to let go of it at that point.
Okay, so, all right. So that's only 3 years, 3 years down the line, so it's not very far. And just as a funny thing, maybe we ought to consider dropping the new and just call it media artwork because it's not new anymore.
True.
Many things have come out since this was installed that we use on our phone every day. So, you know, that surpass whatever is here.
And just another note to add, we noticed a lot of interaction, a lot of interest. Public always interacts with the piece. So it's really a shame to see the kiosk down.
Right.
But it's always fun to see people adding comments to the wall, adding their photos. It really creates this really welcoming, friendly, open environment in the lobby. And, both the artist and us would really love to see this level of interaction be resumed.
Yeah, hopefully as things open up again, even more so, and more people go into City Hall, I think it's important to have that kiosk up, to have that interface and interaction with the community that comes in.
I agree with you, Ben, and with all the comments that you guys have. They've been great questions. And once we install the piece on Kings Plaza, we are going to drive traffic to that plaza, which will then get people engaged in the lobby as well. I think we owe it to this award-winning piece to update it. It is a good sum of money, but it's not out of the park. And I think even if it only gets us 3 more years with the piece, I think it's worthwhile. That's just my opinion.
That's the first thing you see when you walk into City Hall is that big screen, and how can you interact with it? I think it's important, as I was saying, as things open up, more and more people go to City Hall, to have that interface ready to go.
I just have one question, since we're talking about the monitor and City Hall. The piece, did you, Elise and Nadia, work with the city to place it in that location? I don't remember. So if it wasn't there, what would be there? I like it. I want to keep it, but it just was on my mind, and I was just curious.
Right. So this was part of a CAP construction project with the renovation of the entire lobby. So that was the opportunity to integrate an artwork that was in keeping with the intention of the redesign of the lobby. And the intention of that redesign was to make this the people's space, so it didn't feel so imposing, that people felt invited to be part of it and join the conversation, literally. And so we put out this call for a new media artwork, knowing that there was going to be some sort of media wall in that lobby, but nobody knew what kind of shape or form it would take. And, as Susan Narduli and her team joined the design team, it morphed into that linear wall design. And that's typically how our design development happens with artists, that we bring them on the design team early enough in the design process that they can design something that the artwork can integrate into more successfully.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mhm.
One
Another-
other quick question. Are those strips, those big strips still hanging up on the ceiling?
Yes, the artwork is still there.
Okay.
We had them cleaned during the construction and they were reinstalled.
It's also
Is
safe.
there a way, is there something saying that they're up there? Is there something that people would look up?
Yes, we have a
Just Look
plaque.
Up. I just watched that movie, Just Look Up, but just look up. There's something, there's something there. Is there something we can do about that?
It's interesting. Yeah, we actually have a plaque. It's on the wall, sort of facing the, the entrance doors. So I guess only the people exiting the building would most likely notice this plaque.
Too
Or
late
waiting in
then.
line for revenue collections.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Anybody want a motion?
I move that we support the collection care
Wait, can I- a second,
conversation.
I second.
right, and roll call, Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Okay, and our last action item of the night is new acquisition of artwork.
See, this is the fun stuff. So, so as many of you are aware, the Coverly Artist Studio program, and hopefully many of you got to their open studios in November. It was very well attended. It was great to see the community go through the studios, and the artists were really excited to welcome people into their studios. So as part of the Coverly Artist Studio program, when artists are granted a studio space, they are given city subsidized rent during the term of their residency in return for community service and arts programming, as well as a donation of artwork that reflects their time and their artistic development during their time at the Coverly Artist Studio program. So here we have an artwork being donated by Shandricka Marla, who was born in New Delhi. She worked as a fashion designer for several years before she began painting. Her work has been exhibited at the De Young Museum and the Queen's Museum, among others. She's known for her saturated color to create paintings of simplistic forms that straddle the line between realism and abstraction. Her work explores female identity and is inspired by women, their relationships with others, and their own selves. The artwork offered for donation is titled Meet Me Halfway and was painted in 2020. And you can see the piece here, and there's a really amazing tension between those shapes and that, that in-between color. So she offered a quote about the piece. She said, or about her practice. As I paint, I use my memories of events, conversations, and feelings, and what I call accidental color, to compare relationships between people, the outer and inner self, the individual, and society. Do the colors live peacefully together? Are they agitated? How do they make me feel? The soft, blurry line where multiple layers of paint meet is the place where those thoughts come together, but it is neither clear nor defined. So Shandricka, in her time at Coverly, and she is in the final year of her first term at Coverly, has really been able to explore her artwork, and it's evolved somewhat from more rounded pieces. This is something kind of newly emerging in her work with a little bit more angular look to it. She's really starting to play with scale, and she's really had a chance to develop her artwork in a new way. And she's had quite a bit of success now on getting some more exhibition. So we're really excited about what she's been doing. And this artwork really represents kind of a shift and a change in her practice that we think will be an excellent addition to the collection. It is hang ready, and we don't think we'll have any trouble finding placement for it within the city.
What's the size of it?
This one, Nadia, do you have the size in front of you? It's about 30 by 30, 36 by 36.
Yeah, it's actually, it's 36 by 40
Okay.
acrylic on canvas. Yeah, it's spectacular.
Yeah, the image really doesn't capture how electrifying that vein of like orange and red is. It's really, it's incredible in person.
And Elise, when you say that you'll find a place in the city for it, what types of venues are open for it? And do venues themselves say we're looking for artwork, or how does that whole process work?
Great question. So we have more than 200 artworks in our portable collection that we rotate throughout city facilities mostly. We do have a number of pieces that are on loan to Avenidas and on display there. But primarily it's through city facilities, so city offices and spaces. Sometimes we hang things in the meeting room of the art center as well.
Can I ask another question? As part of the donation process, do they put a monetary value on it, or do you, or is that just considered a donation and there's no value? Understood.
It's considered a donation, and they need to work with their tax advisor on any of the legalities. They give us an estimate for what they value it as, but there's nothing to back it up. So we don't publish that, and they don't get a tax certificate for it. So they need to work with their tax advisor on how to handle that.
Okay.
And you'll see more of these come through. So we have another artist who we met with, we thought would be ready to donate for this particular meeting, but he's just started this new series of work that we felt like would be really amazing to have for the collection, and he's going to work on that a little bit further. So we're going to check that in with him this summer. But you'll see these come through. Typically they come through in batches, but it's unusual, but Shandricka is coming in solo on this one.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts?
Pardon me, what was that?
Oh, I said if anybody has any other questions, comments, or thoughts. No? Would anybody like to make a motion? Then I'll motion.
I can move. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Marla. No, it's
Sorry,
fine.
I was muted. I can move that we accept this donation from cast artist Shandricka Marla into our collection. Thank you.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you. And roll call, Vice Chair Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Waltek,
Yes.
and Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Wonderful. And now on to our non-action item of the Art Commission work plan for 2022.
And I know it feels like we just did the other one. So just to back up for a moment, just thinking about the calendar and how the Public Art Commission and staff have generally worked together on work plans in the past. The Public Art Commission usually has had the retreat in September.
Give me 1 second, Elise. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can we start over about what it is? I don't believe Lisa was with us when we
Right.
did the work plan.
Right. So generally the commission puts together an annual work plan, and previously that has been done at our September retreat. I was going to go into, now there's a new handbook that requires a separate work plan that goes to council, and there's a different timeline for that. So I'll get to that in just a second. So usually the commission has had the retreat in September because that is after budget season, after it's adopted and finalized. So staff knows which CIP projects will be moving forward or not. Staff and the commission tend to go through everything on the horizon at that retreat, and looking at what's going to happen within the next year and also 2 years, because a number of these have that kind of impact. So whatever is associated with construction projects, what private development projects may be happening, temporary projects such as, murals, microgrants, and code art, and then looking with the commission and evaluating what the priorities are. So last year was the first year that the commission was asked to submit a work plan in accordance with this new commissioner handbook that the council has adopted. So that was asked for in the spring, and it was based on the priorities that were set in September, but slightly updated. So staff, and I know Chair Taylor also received a reminder that the commissions need to submit a new work plan for 2022, and that will be reviewed by council in April, which means that it will be due in mid to late March to make sure that it is included in the council packet. So part of the 2022 work plan should include an update and outcomes from the 2021 work plan, which we have some great things to report after code art and microgrants and so many things that were included in there, as well as the work plan for the upcoming year. So in August, the commission adopted a set of priorities for the coming year. So the work plan could come from those priorities, similar to what the commission did last year. We have some time for discussion on this topic this evening to get the ball rolling. But I think one of the things to point out that was a bit of a challenge last time, as a commissioner generated document, only 2 commissioners may work on it between public meetings. So public meetings are the only time that as a body, you all could discuss and collaborate it together. So some of the questions I wanted to bring to you all for discussion this evening about how to proceed is, first of all, does the commission want to hold a special meeting or hold a longer period in our next regular meeting, that would be in February, to try and hash this out together as a group, and then have an ad hoc committee work on it between the February and the March meeting, and then return to finalize and adopt it in March? That would be one way to do it, either in a special meeting or just agendize it with a substantial period of time for next month. And then bigger picture, does it make sense to move our annual retreat to January to better align with the work plan council submission timeline? Do we want to consider having 2 retreats? What's the feeling and the feedback from the commission? So that's enough out of me. I want to hear what you all have to say.
Thanks, Elise. I'll start by saying I thought we did a really nice job on our last work plan, but it was a little chaotic because we couldn't all do it. But I know that at one of the meetings, it might have been a special meeting, but I don't recall exactly which one it was, where we did go over and make comments and wordsmith things. And I think that would be really beneficial again. I think we could either do, I think that would be also helpful just to, or it could be 2 commissioners who just briefly sit down and write down everything we've accomplished and share it with the rest of the commission, and say, did we miss anything? And then kind of do more detail and then come back to the commission as a whole. And I think it would be helpful, if you guys don't mind, to do a special meeting. That way we're not wasting our general meeting time. But I think it depends on what we have on the agenda. But I definitely think it helps to have all of us in one room, so to speak.
Right, and I think Nadia has a slide of the priorities that were adopted at our retreat in September, which we had so much going on, I kind of had to dust it off in my own mind. And what was done last year was taking these kinds of priorities and then nesting underneath them certain projects that fit within those priorities. And so I would think that perhaps taking a similar approach might make sense. And then with the previous work plan, simply adding a column with updates, and staff can help you with that as far as like code art metrics and, and things of that sort. But these would be the priorities that were set in September, that unless the commission wants to rethink those or reevaluate those, I would assume is a good jumping off point for thinking about this forward-looking work plan.
Yeah, I think we can use these and move forward. I mean, that wasn't that long ago that we collectively set them.
And Lisa, you have to remind me, when were you around? I don't think you were around when we did the priorities and work plan for last year. Am I correct, or were you?
I was part of
Okay.
the retreat. Yeah, I was appointed in June, so I think my first meeting was in June.
Okay, apologies, it's been a while.
That's okay.
So just want to make sure. Okay.
COVID time warp.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure you're not lost in the shuffle. But I agree. I think we have great priorities, and I think we can just take what we had from the last book plan and expand on it. Lauren, Ben, do you have any feedback?
I agree with that. I think what we did with the last, and then add some comments or fine tune it and move forward, that I think is our best bet. But moving forward and looking forward to next year, I guess one of the options is move the retreat to maybe February, but that just seems like a really odd time to have a retreat. But if we have a retreat in September and we come up with a work plan, then like we're doing now, we'd have to fine tune it to go to city council, and there may be other changes that or the priorities that come up. So I'm not sure how we want to work this. I kind of like the idea of coming up with the work plan in September, moving forward, and then having an ad hoc committee in February to go over it, and then bring any changes back to the full commission and then send it forward to council.
That could make sense just because of the way our year is and the budgets. So naturally, we want to get together in September. And perhaps by January, could say, this work plan needs a little tweaking. Things have changed and we won't be able to do this. And so I don't know, I think it's too onerous to go at a work plan twice a year, because it does take some effort. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the second time is more fine tuning than coming up with a new work plan that, as Elise was saying, in September, you know what the budget is and you can start moving forward with stuff.
Right.
And so that's a good time to come up with the initial work plan. And then a few months down the line, as you see things change, maybe to change it to meet those needs.
Yeah.
And I will add too. Oh, sorry, Ben. That's the one thing.
No, because it seems like council always has some other thing they're coming up with that we're trying to react to, and I don't want to react to it, but be proactive to it and move forward with that. So, and I think this commission's been pretty good about being proactive. So, if we can keep that up, I think it would be good.
And I just wanted to say too, in the email that I received, they were mentioning, I was trying to look it up at the same time now to see who it was that sent it to me, because I'm forgetting. But they said they're still figuring out exactly what they want from the work plan from everybody. So they're trying to mainstream things too. So it could change. So I
Right.
think just using what we had and just tweaking it as needed is probably the best scenario.
Yeah, I think the mayor was saying that they still haven't come up with a format for the work plan, so everybody's submitting the same thing and not have to interpret every work plan with a different format that comes across their desk. So, I think the city council still has some work to do in that area and what they want to actually see in the work plan.
I think that was a particular challenge as I was communicating with the other board and commission liaisons, is the template that was in the handbook. A lot of those columns didn't really apply to the commission and the kind of work that
Right.
that is done through the program or through the commissioners. And so this seemed to be the best fit while still answering a lot of the same questions that they seem to be asking for. So I would recommend that that for now, until we hear differently, we stick with this kind of format where, as you can see on the screen, we've got the orange, which is priority. Like you saw, we had the 3 priorities that were adopted in September. These were the priorities from the previous year. And then adding certain projects as examples of priority projects that exemplify that, and that essentially becomes the work plan. And then, of course, we had an appendix of lovely eye candy too.
Always helps.
Well, it is the Public Art Commission, and it's appropriate to have visuals, of course.
Yes.
So Ben, adding on to your comment about a special meeting in February. So if, say, we do need to get something in at March, is everybody open to meeting in February and having a special meeting in a perhaps addition to our general meeting? But I don't know if we'll have anything on the agenda. I'm sure we'll have like 1 or 2 things. So I guess the question is, Elise, when do you think you might have a better idea of the February agenda? Or would people, I'm wondering, actually, it's kind of late. Personally, for me, it's kind of late, 7 o'clock to start thinking about the work plan. So I'm thinking maybe personally doing it in the morning might be better, a daytime. So my eyes are fresh, but I'm open to other thoughts.
Yeah, I guess will we just do it
That makes sense.
to try to figure out what works best?
No, the report is due at the end of March to City Council.
Mid to late March. So the thinking is it could be a good meaty item on the February agenda to discuss, put together the ad hoc committee, sort of figure out which projects would fit underneath each priority. Staff could come back with some of the metrics to update the previous one to report out. The commission can discuss all of those and sort of skeleton out what's going to be part of the forward-thinking plan. The ad hoc committee could then draft it to come back at the March meeting for adoption.
Right. And then that way you don't need a special meeting, which I think is good.
And who wants to be the ad hoc?
Yeah. And then in February, you have the ad hoc committee and you discuss whatever your work plan was, tweak it at that meeting. Then the ad hoc committee takes that and goes forward and then comes back at the March meeting and presents any final things, and you can do the tweaking then and then pass it on to City Council.
Does that mean, are you suggesting in that scenario that at the February meeting, at our typical February meeting, we do all the action items and agenda items and additionally address the revamp or the tweaking of this, and then a smaller group, a subset of this group actually implements that? Like, or are they coming up with new things? How is that? What's the content?
No, it would just be an agenda item. It wouldn't be any spending special. It'd be an agenda item. From that agenda item, then you form the ad hoc committee, but you would discuss the plan, the work plan that was developed in September at the retreat. Then that would be discussed in February. The ad hoc committee would then take that and then come back in the March meeting with any changes, tweaks to that, and then a further discussion and approval.
And I understand where you're coming from. I personally think it's might be, at least for me, feeling a little too rushed to go back in March to finalize and make sure everybody's on board. And I also feel maybe we should have a special meeting, but that's just my personal opinion.
Special meetings are hard. It's hard to
No.
get quorums, you know?
We've
That's the
been lucky the
problem.
last couple of times, so I'm optimistic, but
You know, people have travel plans and all kinds of different things that come up, so.
And
Just keep that in mind, it's with special meetings.
and it can only be like an hour. I mean, I'm not like looking for like 4 hours or 3 hours. It's just,
No, I understand that, but it's
Yeah.
still difficult that when you've planned out your calendar to throw something else in there, it's difficult to pivot away from certain things.
So one thing that might, just to add to the conversation, one thing that might be helpful is in preparation for the next meeting, if staff circulates the copy of the previous year's work plan as a template, a copy of the priorities for this year, and the new version, which will be coming out soon, of the status update sheet. So that would give you sort of a menu of items that you could potentially plug under those priorities. And so if each commissioner comes to the meeting with the list of which projects they feel would be suited, knowing that not every project has to go in there, but having a few projects under each of those priorities as examples, that I feel like the item could be fairly streamlined.
I'm just gonna give a little plug to what I was trying to say earlier is, yes, the first lift was a heavy lift because we were doing something that we hadn't done. And also it was a little chaotic last year. We're still reacting to COVID and not meeting in person. Now we have this beautiful template and our priorities are pretty much the same. So I'm not sure it's going to be as challenging as it was last year. That's just a little plug.
I guess my question, another question is in terms of the ad hoc committee, 2 people. Is that we have to start thinking about that too. Who's
Sure.
able to take on that lift as well. So it's not a lot of work, but it is, I think.
It's wordsmithing and some of that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be a part of that. So if I can get a partner in that, it's probably good to have at least 2 voices, not just because then I'm just going to put on there how did that get deleted? Well, that's off the table. No, I'm kidding.
I'm
Of course,
interested.
all the input will be from the whole commission, of course.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have 2 people to work with.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm interested in that ad hoc committee. The other option is maybe have a January, discuss that in January, February, and then have the final approval in March.
But it's
You know,
January
it's not
now
as
then. So,
compressed. It's not as compressed, and it gives a little more time for input and for the ad hoc committee to work.
but then when you just said January, what do you mean? Because now it's January.
Start the
mean-
process in January instead of February. So you have January, you start the process from the retreat items on the work plan and with staff input. And then you discuss it at the January meeting. The ad hoc committee would take those comments, go do whatever they do, then come back to the February meeting with any other changes, any other discussion then. Changes, ad hoc committee works on that, and then March, they come back with maybe a final document that gets approved to go forward.
Well,
Right, but we're in our
just
January
on
meeting
work.
right now. So this is our January meeting right now, Ben, right? So you're assuming we're talking about it now. So you and Lauren have agreed to be the ad hoc. The 2 of you will meet offline,
Yeah,
then come back to us in February during our meeting, and then you'll go back. Oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I think
Right.
it's just a time warp issue. In this case, like Elise said, it's COVID time warp. We are in January now, so I think Ben and I need the input of the entire commission. And so we'll get that input at the next meeting in February, and then we'll have to kind of hustle for those
Okay.
2 weeks and get it back to you guys. Actually, it's 4 weeks
Okay.
between meetings, but we'll probably try to get it done. I don't know if we can push anything forward to you guys though, unless it's in a public forum, which we probably can't, right?
Well, it could be
Okay.
distributed to the commission and in the packet, but there just can't be back and forth between various commissioners. So
So at least
Right.
could
Yeah.
then come with their edits and their comments to the meeting
to
to have a full
March.
discussion.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, there's lots going on. I'm like trying to dot my I's and cross my T's. Thank you, Ben. Okay, good. Well, at least we have 2 of you. Thank you for stepping up. And so I guess in the meantime, at least you'll and Nadia will send that out, the document. So at our leisure, can take a look. And then also, do we know kind of what's on the next agenda? Just thinking in terms of timing.
I'd
Or
have to
are you
look,
still kind of- okay.
anything that was really solid. We had a pretty big agenda this evening.
Great.
Generally it'll be a couple weeks before we know. So if there's new information on the Midtown Mural, that's one thing that's lingering out there. There could be other maintenance items that pop up. So it's hard for us to really know for sure, but right now, no, there's not anything substantive on that agenda, but that's not unusual 1 month out.
Right. I have a quick question, and you mentioned the Midtown mural. I know we tabled that item. Is there any sense of when that will come forward again, or is there still comments coming in? People making comments, pro and con, that sort of stuff, or?
Well, without getting too into the item, we're still waiting on some more information before we can come back to the commission.
Okay, all right. All right. But it's out there and, yeah, okay,
It's out there, we're working on it, but we don't have enough information to come back to the commission at this meeting.
all right.
Good. So I think we're good. Yes, everybody. Thank you.
Can I, Chair Taylor, can I just review what to expect from Nadia and Elise? The past work plan from 21 and the priorities that we're looking at for this year. I know we already received a nice list in an email form of what's coming up this year, so we can definitely use that too. And then what was the third thing you were going to send to us that we could look over? Was there a third?
Was the project status update, because that would be
Right.
an easy, quick list for you to look at and
Thank you.
slide projects into. And so I usually try to send that out early in the month.
We will keep our eyes out for that for sure. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Lauren, for just clarifying questions. Okay. Any other last minute questions, comments, thoughts? Nope. Okay. Elise, you want to are you going to discuss the transmittal of attendance, or that was just as a
It's not really a discussion item. It's
discussion?
just-
Yeah. Just there.
It's something that's attached there. It was something that is required of the handbook to periodically report out. And we thought that doing that in January for the previous year is a logical time to do so.
Thank you. And announcements. Okay.
The Fog
sure.
Art Fair is this weekend. The images I've seen online of people who've gone to some of the early events, it seems like it's going to be really great. I'm going on Saturday.
Wait, what art fair did you say?
The Fog Art and Design Fair.
Fog?
Yes.
FOG.
It's SF and it's, most of it's down by the water in those big warehouses, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Elise, I'll see you there. I'll be there on Saturday as well.
Right.
And then also there's paint. So the fog is at Fort Mason, Lisa. And then there's also Paint the Void, which is during the pandemic, there was a lot of boarded up retail spaces, and a lot of the art got stored away. And so they're going to be presenting them, and it's, I think, Pure 70, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
So
very
that should-
cool.
Yeah, so online, they're asking people to reserve tickets. It's free, but they ask for a donation.
Paint the void.
Paint the void.
Okay.
Any other announcements people want to share? Okay, well, our next meeting is Thursday, February 17th. I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Be there. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy
Yay.
New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.